Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Design Review Board meeting, Wednesday, October 30th. And apologize for anyone that is listening on YouTube. We just had a few technical difficulties, so we are pleased to get started now. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have any declaration of conflicts today? Seeing none, an approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Back, seconded by Councillor McCabe. So thank you for that. And could I have an adoption of the minutes from the last design review meeting on Monday, September 16th? Moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Councillor McCabe. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we will move right on now to reports. We have two this evening. And the first one is from Laurel Palmer, and it's 308 312 Richmond Street, PID 339598. And it's a request to review an exterior design proposal for a 3-story townhouse to be constructed at 308 312 Richmond Street. Over to you, Laurel.
Okay.
We're trying to. Yeah, I know, I can't get the clicker to work, sorry.
See, I don't know. These are, it's a funny little unit. I'll do it. Go ahead. Or you can.
Yes,
Okay, sure.
that's the wrong present, that's Dave's presentation.
Oh dear. Sorry,
One moment, please.
I thought that was
Difficulties?
Richmond?
Yeah, we have.
Sorry, I went 1-2, cause in there's 1-2.
That's my bad.
Uh-oh. Oh dear.
What?
Wait, just a minute. No. I don't know what to do here. I wanna get rid of that.
In here,
Full screen?
just click full screen.
Oh my goodness. Slideshow.
It's right on the bottom.
There we go.
Full-
There we go. Oh dear.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, Madam Chair, members of Design Review Board. This is a request to review or accept the exterior design proposal for a new 3-story townhouse at 308 to 312 Richmond Street. The building, I did indicate that the intent was to demolish, but the building has been demolished. I forgot we did issue a demolition permit for the site, so it is a vacant site. This proposal was before Design Review Board in June of 2003. And
Yep, there you go.
And at the time, the board recommended that it go back to a design reviewer for review. We did have a former design reviewer, Peter Fellows, who was a retired architect at the time, and he did do the initial review but couldn't perform the second review. So it was actually myself and Todd Saunders, who is our heritage officer, reviewed the comments that was submitted by the design reviewer and compared it to the drawings that were submitted following the initial design reviewer's comments to confirm that it met what the initial design reviewer was recommending. So when we took it to the board felt that it should go back to a design reviewer. So we contacted Greg Munn, who is an architect, a local architect, and is on our design review roster. So this was the first submission. It's for the building, and it was a 4-story modern building. You can see that there's very modern materials, and then there was a 4th level that was like an atrium. And the initial reviewer felt that that was not in keeping with the context of the neighborhood where it was proposed. So this one proposed horizontal wood siding and natural tone to wrap the southwest and north facades on levels 2 and 3. It had vertical aluminum siding in warm tones with no exposed fasteners to wrap the southwest and north facades at ground level, which was intended to break up the mass of the building and provide some interest at street level. The east facade, which was not visible, proposed to have non-combustible cladding with no openings, and that height exceeded 40 feet and incorporated the 4-story terrace that I was talking about right here. So this is another view of the original. So following that review, the architect and applicant come back with this proposal, which was more in keeping with the neighborhood. It incorporated gabled roof, more traditional materials. The direction and arrangement of the roofs had been designed to be sympathetic to other buildings on the street. Inspiration was taken from existing dwellings in similar shape and setbacks. The gable roof sloped in the same direction, and the main entry was in the same location on Richmond Street as the original dwelling, and it was primarily wood siding material. The balconies were located on the back of the building in this instance, and the building height was lowered, so it took the 4-story atrium was removed because of the gable roof. So there were some comments that were received from the design reviewer on this one, and he felt that there should be some changes. So we did provide that to the architect, and Chris came back with some changes to the building, but the comments that we did receive from the design reviewer included: it is recommended the building is set back on the site to generally align with the main massing of the 3 houses to the west, provide a 3rd parking stall to meet the requirements of city bylaws. If you'll notice, there is 2 garages located on the front facade, and this was primarily because an initial design that was submitted had 3 across the front, and it was felt that it was just the whole facade of the building was garages, so they incorporated this sort of like focal point on the building. With that additional garage missing, though, we would require a cash in lieu of that to replace that 1 parking spot, because it is required under the bylaw. It is recommended that the garage doors have vision panels to be more attractive feature at the street level. A covered porch that protrudes over the 3 front doors would visually help set the garage doors back, and would also be beneficial to address the scale of the building amongst its neighbors. Finished materials for the roof is recommended to be asphalt shingles. The windows are recommended to be painted wood or metal clad, single or double hung, 1/1 or 2/2 units. Alternatively, they are to be wood finished or metal clad casement windows with a mutton configuration to break up the void of large glass panels, preferably 4 equal panes in a cross configuration. And he also indicated that it is recommended that the palette is simplified and wood clapboards or shingles or a combination of the 2 are used to finish the exterior of the building on the street facade and the sides at least. Alternatively, the design reviewer also offered that metal panels with hidden fasteners are allowed that do not mimic wood. So we do allow metal siding, but it's not to mimic wood in the 500 lot area, so it's to look like metal siding and have the hidden fasteners. So he also indicated that the building should be set back and with the main walls of the dwellings that are on Richmond Street, to allow for green space between the building and the street facade. And that's for 2 reasons: to give a bit of a setback from the street so it's more appealing along the streetscape, and also Maritime Electric. We did have some projects where the buildings were pulled right to the property boundary, the front property boundary, and that did create some issues with Maritime Electric with overhead power lines. So if you're in an area where there are no overhead power lines, then we can accommodate that if the adjoining buildings are to the streetscape front property line as well. But if we have overhead power lines, it causes a safety hazard during construction, because the construction workers are trying to reach the roof and avoid these power lines. So we did have one project that we had to pull the building back, and that was on, I believe it was King Street a few years ago. So revised drawings, as per the design reviewer's comments, were submitted. And this is the revised drawings. You can see the porch was incorporated, and the center focal point was removed or toned down. Pallets were simplified. Wood shingles and the asphalt, the roof was changed to asphalt shingles. So as per the design reviewer's recommendations, all 3 entry doors have similar entry systems. All roofs are asphalt shingles, similar materials to existing buildings on the block. In accordance with the design reviewer's recommendations, a front canopy supported by columns has been added. That's right here, as I noted. This helps set the garage doors back and is beneficial in scaling the building at the street level and is in keeping with the architectural articulation present in the neighborhood. As per the design reviewer's recommendations, the garage doors have glazed panels, which is an attractive feature at street level and will also benefit the interior by providing natural light into the garages. The building's facade had been divided to create dimensions similar to existing buildings on the block, and the cladding of the building is glazed garage doors, glazed entry doors, and with side lights, transoms, and pre-finished wood siding. So the recommendation overall from Planning and Heritage Department is to approve the proposed revised building design that was submitted on January 28th, 2024. And that is subject to a request being submitted to planning board for 1 parking space cash in lieu of parking. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and Chris Jetty and the applicant is also here, Gary Feener, to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for your proposal or your presentation. Jeez, try that one again. Any questions from the board, first of all? Questions, comments? Yes, Brian, go ahead.
I'm questioning in the final rendering of the elevation, it shows vertical panels. What are they made of?
It would be a pre-finished wood cladding.
Why vertical?
Well, it could be either. It's just my preference for.
The design
It's an aesthetic.
design reviewer's comments give preference to clapboard, which is horizontal, or shingles. So I don't see that being reflected, and it's a matter of, I'm not here asserting my preference. I'm basically listening to the design reviewer's comments and looking at how they've been interpreted, and I don't see that as being executed in accordance with that request.
Yeah.
Well, there were 2 alternatives. One was the metal siding with hidden fasteners, or the wood clapboard wood siding. So they do have their choice of just
It is wood. I'm just questioning
Yeah.
whether, why not apply it horizontally versus vertically?
I
The
don't
buildings,
think we have any strong feelings one way or the other. I mean, it's.
the building is 3 very narrow modules,
Mm.
and when you put the verticalness to it, it accentuates that.
Absolutely.
And when you look at buildings in that neighborhood, they don't have that nature. That it's just my sort of separating out what I'd like versus what the design reviewer has commented. And the whole rationale is tried to, as it's stated, let the buildings be modern buildings. We're not trying to create heritage structures in sort of the current construction. And it's just, he stated, try to get it to blend in a little bit, but still it's gonna show up as a new building. Just a question.
Well, we've had some experience in the lot 500 area, and we have manipulated materials here and there. I'm the architect for the one on King Street. You know, what was there before were two shingled facades and shingled side yard facades, and we ended up putting brick on the front facade, and just for non-combustibility purposes reasons, we clad the east and the west side with steel, and we did vertical in that regard. But you know, I don't know if you've got that
The King Street,
that one in my design, my notes, design
that was
notes.
in the,
on
it's,
thinner package.
yeah, it's in the
January 18th.
package, yeah.
But anyway, I mean, it's,
I think each unit should be considered in its context. Every streetscape is good.
well, it's, yes, but I think what's going on in the lot 500 area is, and you can see that from, you know, from King Street and Lower Queen Street, some of the new buildings on those areas, and, you know, significant departure from the traditional as well. So I'd be happy to explore any option, and we've done a number of iterations. We didn't do horizontal clapboard siding or shingles as an option, but this is iteration number 4 for us. And, you know, certainly we could, in the process of the building permit application, I can suggest an alternate.
When it gets to this stage, it's basically, we're not here to negotiate. We basically have a recommendation to approve it. So we either approve it, or I think it's not a negotiating process for us. It's,
Through the chair, we can, if there are recommendations that the board has, we can approve it subject to
Condition.
conditions, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Aaron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do echo Brian's comments. I think it's interesting because when I look at the design of the building, I expected it to be 3 vertically stacked units, because I think the facade implies that there are 3 individual townhouses, but in fact it's really a duplex with a ground floor apartment tucked in the back. And so I think, to Brian's comments a little bit, that, you know, now you were at 3 facades or 3 vertical elements that are only 14 to 15 feet wide, like they're actually quite narrow. It feels odd to me. Again, we have a design reviews recommendation from Craig Munn, and he seems to accept it. But I do find that it's a little strange to me because it presents to the street as a triplex, but in fact it's a duplex.
Thank you for that. Laurel, can you comment on that?
Yes, Madam Chair. I mean, I'm not an architect, so it's hard for me to talk about design. But I mean, yes, Aaron is correct. I mean, it is a 3-unit. With the, you know, the other unit is tucked in behind. It's all a matter of design. I mean, it's taste. From an architectural perspective, it's hard for me to really, you know, weigh in on that because that's not my area of expertise.
Okay, so the recommendation from the Planning and Heritage Department had encouraged the Design Review Board to approve the proposed revised building design submitted, subject to a request to be submitted to Planning Board for one parking space for cash in lieu of parking. So that's the recommendation that we have from the staff. Unless the board has a recommendation that they want to include with this, is that what you're saying? We can, the board can add other suggestions into this recommendation?
Yes, so Madam Chair, we, as staff, we rely on the design reviewers area of expertise when it comes to architectural design. If the design review board feels that there are, additional things that should be added to the resolution or the approval, then they do have the opportunity to do that. Or they do have the opportunity to either approve it as is or reject it or defer it. Those are the options.
Great, thank you. So folks, is there any other questions or comments on this project? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Madam Chair, did Greg Munn recommend approval of the design that's presented?
Yes, that's the design.
He's
final.
looked at that and he's recommended it. Fine.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McCabe, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm just trying to follow YouTube on my phone because I'm trying to make sure I can see everything and understand. But again, I'm a board. I'm trusting my board to make the recommendations.
So are you putting a resolution on the floor to accept staff's recommendation from the design review?
I can put that recommendation on the floor unless there's an amendment from either Brian or Aaron with some extra features. They both had kind of some concern about the triplex looking, or the duplex looking more triplexy. I don't know if that's something that can be further discussed, but I'm comfortable if the design review and just follow the proper process, put it on floor.
Okay, so does anybody want to second Councillor McCabe's recommendation to support staff's recommendation of the design reviewer to support this application? Does anyone want to second that? Okay, seconded by Brian. So the resolution's on the floor for the design review board to accept Planning and Heritage Department's recommendation to approve the proposed revised building design that's been submitted, and just to note that the design that we're seeing today is the one that the design reviewer has also approved. Any
Just to
question?
clarify, Madam
Yes.
Chair, it's the design reviewer approved the design as per his recommendations in.
Right,
Okay.
Yep. Gotcha. So, is that clear for everyone? And I know there was one of the items in his recommendation was about considering having a third parking spot, but that really isn't a design.
That, yes, Madam Chair, that can be, if a third parking space isn't provided, then they do have the opportunity to go to planning board and council to apply for one space cash in lieu of parking.
Yeah, which is a completely different process.
It's a different process.
So the resolution is on the floor. Are there any more questions on the resolution?
I just want to go back to the vertical horizontal piece. And again, thanks for bringing it up, Brian. I'm not a builder, so I appreciate the pause or for second thought here, but are we talking about, are you referring to like this vertical here, this vertical here? Are you talking horizontal everywhere or just on these kind of dominant areas?
I just asked why they were chosen as vertical.
Is that what you were referring to? Were you referring to vertical everywhere, like all along the front?
here.
Just those two areas there? Okay. And really, it's really just, I guess it's a matter of taste, pretty much is what if I'm hearing from Gary and Chris here, that could go either way, we just decided to go that way. Just looking at the other ones that were referenced in here, the one down in Dorchester and the one on King, it seemed to me that there was a horizontal on the facade or the front and vertical on the side.
Yes, yeah.
If you look at the other, it seems on page 24 there. It looks like that's what you've done, and I don't know whether, again, that was just a preference, or you think that this one looks better this way.
I think it's a little bit arbitrary. Traditionally, it would have been shingles or clapboard, and it probably would have been in the, in the horizontal orientation. But, I think this helps reinforce that that it's perhaps a more formal arrangement of the facade in that it's, this tripartite facade, and it's very vertical as it is. And I'm thinking that would help identify it as a modern, sympathetic building to the area.
Great, thank you for that. Are we ready to vote on the recommendation? Any other questions? If not, we can call the question. All those in favor of accepting staff's recommendation and the design reviewers? All those in favor?
In favor.
Aaron?
In favor.
Okay, so that was unanimous, so thank you for that. So that ends here. This design review application does not go on to council because it was completed here. But what you will see at council is at the next planning board meeting would be the application for the parking in lieu. Or whatever,
Cash in lieu.
whenever, cash in lieu, whenever you're ready. Will that be at the next planning board meeting or?
Not next week, no,
Okay,
probably the one after,
all right,
subject to an application.
yes, okay. Thank you for that. And thank you folks for coming in.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Chris, do you want these back?
Sure. Well, unless are they useful to you?
I mean, I can print the same size,
No
but
worries. Keep them all. I just printed them just for this meeting, so.
okay.
Thank you for your time. Thanks, everybody.
A second. Sorry, my computer crapped out on me. 2 secs. We're certainly having an evening of technology, aren't we? Mercy. Okay, next item on the agenda is 62 Sherwood Road, PID 455642. And this application will be presented by our Manager of Development Planning, David Gundrum. And it's a request to review an exterior design proposal for a proposed 5-story apartment building that would have a total of 75 dwelling units in the highway commercial C2 zone. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Jared. So the following application is a request for a design review to confirm the exterior design for a 5-story multi-unit residential building on the subject property that would have 75 units. Property is identified as 62 Sherwood Road, PID number 455642, shown here as highlighted in red. The development was subject to an approved major variance for building height, which was approved on August 13th, 2024 by City Council. The next slide provides an illustration of the exterior design and facades of the building. A couple of perspectives looking at the main faces of the building with the main entrance on the ground level. The next slide, context. The property is located on the south side of Sherwood Road, which is an east-west city road. It's located within the highway commercial C2 zone adjacent to high-density residential development, vacant lands to the south, as well as an electrical substation to the west, and nearby highway commercial development, the Seafood Express warehouse, which is to the east of the subject property. Subject property is currently vacant and undeveloped and contains no buildings or structures. As per section 3.14 of the zoning and development bylaw, any new multi-unit residential buildings which contain affordable housing are required to undergo the design review process to ensure the architectural design of the proposed developments maintains a high-quality design and are constructed with a consistent type and quality of materials. The proposed development would contain affordable housing units. The applicants have submitted a design package which contained facade drawings, elevation drawings, as well as a site plan of the proposed development, which is shown on the right of the slide here. It is noted that there are 2 previous buildings on an adjacent parcel of land to the north which have been previously developed by the same developer, which is Arsenault Brothers Construction. As per section 3.14.3 of the zoning and development bylaw, the design package was forwarded to design reviewer Greg Munn to conduct a review of the proposed development for conformity with the intent of the zoning and development bylaw and the applicable criteria for evaluation for design review. The design reviewer provided recommendations as follows with regard to landscaping only, with an overall summary statement for the development. So with respect to site landscaping, the design reviewer, as quoted, stated to create spaces and definition with Wabanaki Acadian forest species as they are native to our climate and will potentially withstand extreme weather events, drought, flood, and infestation better than non-native species. And in terms of summary statement, the design reviewer stated as follows, that the building is in keeping with the large-scale developments of the area, appropriate and needed, the thoughtful and clean geometry, and outdoor zones it creates on the site has a sense of purpose in its composition. This proposed development has an identity and is a good example of how scale and detail can add interest and intention that will enhance the experience of what makes a building a place to live. So in summary, planning staff are recommending that the design review board support the design proposal for the 5-story multi-unit residential building on the property identified as 62 Sherwood Road, PID number 455642, subject to the design reviewer's recommendations outlined in their letter dated September 29th, 2024. So that is summary of the design reviewer's comments, the proposal, and our staff recommendation, and I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, David, for that. I'll just open it up to questions from the board. Any questions, comments? Yes, Councillor Beck.
So, because it had the, and again, I don't know whether this is design or planning, because it involves parking, but it does involve the building itself, because according to the formula, it should have been 42 inside parking spaces. Am I correct, Dave?
Through the chair, Councillor Beck, as far as we're aware, they're providing a sufficient number of parking spaces for the development. It's a mix of both underground and surface level parking.
Right,
So I think it's like a 60.
it's well above.
Yeah, it's like a 60-40 split between surface and underground to account for what they need, so.
Okay,
yeah.
so because it's, there's, and I noted that too, that there was ample, I mean, I think it was 0.75 or something, whatever it was, but it seems like there's all kinds of parking, but the fact that there's not 42 within the building does not make a difference.
Not in this case, no.
No, okay, good.
Thank you for that, Councillor Beck. Any other questions? Yes, Brian.
In the site plan, it shows a right-of-way to the east side of the property.
Yep.
Is that going to be developed as it's shown on the plan with another driveway?
Yeah, so through the chair, Brian, what they're proposing is that will be the principal access to the site, and in the fullness of time, it's kind of ghosted there that in the fullness of time that will form part of a future public road, but for the time being, that'll be the principal access to get onto this site, so there'll be an easement shared with the adjacent property, which was previously developed by the same developers.
But it is part of their building permit that they will build that driveway.
Correct, it has to be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions, Aaron or Councillor McCabe?
No, I'd move that we support staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Nothing
So,
here.
pardon me, Aaron?
Nothing here.
Okay, so Councillor McCabe has put a resolution on the floor to support staff's recommendation. Does somebody want to second that? Seconded by Councillor Beck. Any questions on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Councillor McCabe
In favor.
and Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Wonderful, okay. Thank you for that. So that concludes the items on our agenda. Is, so I can see, is there any new business? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Brian. All those in favor? Great, thank you very much, folks, and have a good evening.